Our next speaker, Prakash, is a code prodigy who started software development at 8 years old and has since then never stopped with his love for technology. So he's a true deep technologist who is the CEO and founder of a company called Windsor, who is doing using like deep learning and technology to build like basically personalized videos. And he's going to shine a light on a technology that's in the center of many, many controversies. So he's going to talk about like deepfakes and both the technological and ethical implications. Please all give a warm virtual welcome to Pranay, who is going to join us via Zoom for the session.
Hey there. Yeah, thanks so much for that intro. I definitely wish I could be there in person. Really quickly, are you able to see my screen? There we go. Perfect. Yeah, thanks so much for that. I definitely want to talk about deepfakes today. And again, I'm Pranay. I'm the founder and CEO of Windsor. And in short, we create deepfakes for profit. And so when you start any video or any presentation talking about making money from deepfakes, it always turns a lot of heads and is a great conversation starter. So it's a topic that I really care about. I've been working on this for a little bit more than a year with an amazing team. And so today I wanted to shed a little bit of light on just how it works. But before we get into any of that, I want to start with a really short story of sort of how we got to where we are. So about a year ago, February of last year, we were sort of, me and my co-founder, who's also my buddy from college, my roommate, we started to sort of coming towards the end of the startup that we had started 2 years ago. We'd ran this for 2 years and we just could not grow, started to see our customers leave, started to see just our bank account towards the end. And we sort of started to see the end of the runway over here. And so we knew at this point that nothing was working and something had to change. And as any good engineer, we sort of resorted to 3 things very quickly. The first one was just browsing Reddit, spending way too much time on Reddit than we should be, playing a lot of chess, and lastly, reading research papers. Now, you kind of know where the story is going. You know, here we are a year later and our startup has succeeded because, succeeded with some air quotes, but because of Reddit, chess, and papers. Today, we are Windsor. We create personalized videos at scale, and we help companies across e-commerce, SaaS, healthcare. It's a lot of different industries. And we help companies across the world in the UK, US, Canada, Australia, and we have a team of about a little bit over 10 people today. Still small, still growing, but in a much better position from where we are. Or were a year ago. And again, all of that because of Reddit, chess, and reading a couple of papers. Now, this is a tech talk, so I definitely want to start by talking about that paper. I will keep this kind of high level. I don't want to get too technical. I know I sort of have the tendency to do that. But first of all, I will start with these 2 GitHub repos. If you are a programmer and you just want to get your hands dirty and start creating your own deepfakes, here are 2 really popular open source libraries out there that you can just get started with. The READMEs are really well documented. You can forget about the rest of this talk and just go have some fun. But today I want to show you how this thing that was deepfakes to me, and I'm not a machine learning engineer, but this topic that was so confusing and sort of felt like magic, I want to demystify that a little bit and sort of show you how it's basically a bunch of simple math and logic, and it's way easier than you might think. So it's a really high level, like 1,000 feet view of machine learning. And I'm going to teach you a little bit about something called supervision in machine learning. You have something called supervised machine learning and unsupervised machine learning. Now, you don't have to worry too much about it, but basically supervised machine learning is this sort of textbook cookie cutter thing that we've all sort of heard about. And I'll show you what I mean. You want to train this model that is really good at doing a task that a human is typically good at. And so the goal is to get this really good model. And we start with a really bad one. Its job in this case is to take in an email that it sees, and this could be a bunch of text, images, HTML content, the domain name, all the data you can find about an email. And then the job of this model is to tell you whether it is spam or not spam. Now, in the beginning, your model doesn't know anything. So it's just going to guess. It's going to take a random email and guess completely randomly and say, hey, this is not spam. Oh, sorry, in this case, this is spam. What we then do is we've pre-created this giant data set of a bunch of different emails, and we've already classified them as spam or not spam. And there's a lot of different ways to build a data set like this, either your own email servers like with Gmail, or you could pay somebody to go in and tag these. But you have this giant data set, and then this model takes a random guess, and you take this guess and you compare it against the data set, and you see, hey, either you're right or you're wrong. Based off of knowing whether you're right or wrong, you can then sort of inform the model. And this is sort of, there's a lot of things I'm skipping over here, but your model gets a little bit smarter by looking at the guess and then sort of improving itself to now, if it was wrong, to now be able to correctly guess that the next time. And it's basically changing the numbers and the parameters of the model itself. So you just keep doing this. You've done this with one email, you do this a second email, and you get a little bit smarter. And the second time, you're not just trying to solve for this new email, you also still want to get good enough where you can guess whether the second email is spam or not, but not forget what you learned the first time. And again, as you do hundreds and thousands of these, you get better and better. And now your model starts to understand something that humans can't really see, but something about these emails that make something spam or not spam. And we've done this and been successful. With a pretty high likeliness, this model will work in the real world. And this is the classic cookie cutter textbook example of supervised machine learning. Unsupervised is where we take out that data set. We don't know much we don't have anyone who went in and tagged all this data. And it's not the same kinds of problems that you solve with unsupervised. You solve a different set of problems, but it is really valuable as well. So an example of a problem you would solve where you don't have this data set is instead, we just take a bunch of emails, and this is all input data, right? So we don't know anything about what these emails are. We can't tell it to guess spam or not spam because it doesn't know that. But we know for these emails that we can extract the number of words in them. We can extract the domain it came from. We can extract the number of images and use all this data and then just try to train this model and sort of ask a more abstract question. So you might ask, hey, can you find all of the different emails that look more similar to each other than some other emails? In other words, we're trying to create categories or groups of emails and just give it sort of a hard, abstract, not well-defined problem. And you let this model try to figure out and sort of tell you, hey, all of these emails based off of these attributes look more similar than these others. And it'll go ahead and sort of categorize them and tell you all of these emails belong to group A. All these other emails belong to group B, and so on. Now, a human can go in, look at that and say, group A is, they all look like newsletters, and group B all looks like promotions. And this is sort of similar to, what Gmail might do with its inbox. Now, I know we went a little bit further away from deepfakes, and I want to get back to that, but it is important to understand that you have these two classes of problems that have a different way of learning. And supervised machine learning, super well understood. We have a defined problem that we're trying to solve, and we know how to get to there. And unsupervised learning we still know how to do it, but it's a little bit of a different problem. So how you make deepfakes work is tricky because the problem is actually quite different from the ones that we saw earlier. So when you're trying to create a model that can properly create a deepfake video, here's how you formulate the problem. The model's job is to take in a bunch of audio in a couple seconds of somebody saying a bunch of words. And I'm just talking about video deepfakes today. Creating audio that, cloning someone's voice is a whole different problem. But let's just talk about video. Say you had a couple of seconds of audio of somebody saying words, and then you had an image of them, just a still image to keep it simple. Your model's job is now to create this couple of seconds of video footage where the person's mouth and lips move to match that audio. And this is a hard problem because you don't have this data set that you can just create a bunch of videos and then have, this giant data set of, does this video match? Is this like a real video or not a video? There's no data set that you can create ahead of time. There's a million different ways you could create or move the lips around to generate something that accurately represents that audio. So since you can't have this table lookup data set, we do something a little bit different. And we're getting into the world of GANs, or generative adversarial nets. So here, we're going to go ahead and create a second model. And this is sort of the little smart trick that we learned from reading this research paper. And to us, it was still new. But the trick is that you create this new model. And this new model is really easy. Just notice that I basically switched the arrow around here. We're creating a model whose job it is to take a video where the video basically looks like it's saying a couple of words. And the model's only job, again, is just like with the spam email problem. The model's job here is to tell you whether this video looks realistic, does it look human, or does it look like, it doesn't match what the audio is saying, or it has a bunch of lizard teeth, or it has something that just doesn't look human. So you want to create a model whose entire job is just to look at a video and tell you whether the lip sync matches. It's also basically a lip sync expert. As humans, we're all lip sync experts. If you're watching a movie and the audio and video don't line up, humans can tell really fast. And so we want to build a model that is capable of doing just that. Now I'll come back to how to train that, but here's the smart thing with GAN is you basically plug these two models together. So again, we want to create a model that can take some audio, take a still image, and create a convincing video. So we'll have a model that just randomly produces a video. But instead of comparing it against this giant data set, we'll use that as the input for our second model. And we'll just ask the second model, does this video look real or not? And so you kind of get into this game where the first model's job, as you train that first model, all it needs to do is get better and better at tricking that second model, right? The second model is going to guess if something is real. And if the first model gets really good at fooling the second model into thinking these generated videos are actually real, then you've got yourself a very good model that can produce videos that look realistic. And so here's how you take something that's a pretty abstract, complicated problem and just reduce it down to simple parts that we know and understand. Now, what makes this incredible, and this is what blew our minds when we first read this paper, and suddenly this thing that we'd heard about in the news and sort of seen cool videos on TikTok suddenly became reachable, was this next part. It turns out that that second model, which is called a discriminator in the case of GANs, is really easy to train when it comes to deepfakes. And that's because, again, remember that this problem, just the second model, its entire job is to take a video and then tell you whether it's real or not. And it's exactly like that email spam problem where you take an email and you guess whether it's spam or it's not spam. Now, in that case, we needed a giant data set of all those emails. In this case, we need a giant data set of all these videos, and we're just looking at real videos, and we just know whether it was real or not. The part that makes this so easy is that you don't actually need to create this data set, right? You don't need... Hello? Sorry, is someone speaking? Okay, sorry, it might be some audio problems. So again, we need this data set of all of these videos and just seeing whether it looks real or not. But you don't actually have to pay anybody or record a bunch of footage. We can just go online and download real videos. Any sort of open, copyright-free or public domain video out there. By downloading a real video, where it's, for example, you could take 3 seconds of this clip, my face and my lips are already perfectly synced with the audio that I'm saying. So if you downloaded a couple of clips of video out there, you already have images perfectly in sync with audio, and this already is a good data set. These are already videos that are implicitly tagged as good videos, right? So just videos online, if you can download 10,000 videos, you already have a data set of 10,000 good videos. And if you want to generate bad videos, just take those good videos and move the audio by a little bit, or swap out the audio from a different video with the video of a different video. And so now you have, a speaker that's moving their lips, but the audio sounds like something else because it's been shifted. And there you go. Now you have a couple seconds of bad footage. And so you can just generate this incredibly large data set of what a good and a bad video is by just downloading footage out there. And so that makes it really easy to train a model that is very, very good at looking at footage and then telling you, are the lips synced correctly or are they not synced correctly? And that's basically what a human can do too. We can look at a video and very quickly tell you whether the person is saying the right things. If you have a model that can represent the human perception here and correctly guess whether something is real or not, it now makes it very easy to train that first model to basically fool the second model. And if that first model can reliably fool the second model, that first model can reliably fool our human eye into perceiving these videos as genuine. Now, I might have gotten a little technical there, so I want to step back. But at this point, after we sort of read this paper, one of the first things we went into was trying to create a real demo video. So we had this video, it was really bad quality at the time. I wanted to play it for you guys, but I'm a little worried about just the internet connection and all of those. So just take my word for it. It is online on the internet somewhere. But we created this video of me basically saying, hey, Courtney, this is a deep fake video. What do you think? Right? And I never actually said the name Courtney. And once we had this demo, we quickly put it on a couple of places and we put it onto Reddit, where it started to basically blow up and did pretty well. And this is a really good segue into talking about sort of getting out of the papers and talking about how Reddit played an important part in Windsor. We put this onto Reddit about a year ago, soon after we had this demo. And again, it was a pretty bad, low quality demo, but people on specifically r/Shopify really liked it. A lot of e-commerce stores wanted to start using videos to thank their customers. I think it had a little bit to do with the pandemic and sort of stores being moved from physical locations online and e-commerce stores starting to have more competition. And so anyone trying to sort of focus on customer loyalty was key. So anything you could do, handwritten notes or videos, were super important. So people on Shopify loved this, but very quickly it made its way onto Twitter and eventually Hacker News, where it was on Hacker News for a couple of hours on the first page. And we started to get comments about how this was really creepy, undermines our government, and even this is the end of society as we know it. People on Hacker News can be a little dramatic sometimes. And so this got us thinking. We spent a lot of time thinking about this and thinking about the ethics of what we were about to embark onto. And this is a very controversial topic. We haven't spoken about this much publicly, but we started to get very soon after these posts, we started to get politicians and people from OnlyFans and porn stars reach out to start using Windsor. But any technology like this, porn and politics are always the first places that people go to. And what we start to realize, this revelation we had about a year ago, is basically that deepfakes are here to stay, whether you like it or not. We think deepfakes are following a very similar trajectory to what happened with image manipulation, basically Photoshop today, which is that you can't really stop it. It's there, and the people that want to use them nefariously will use them nefariously. And the way I like to see it is this. If you went to a jury today, in a court, and you showed them a picture of somebody doing something negative, they would probably question it. The jury would question this image and say, yep, I'm not sure, because people can Photoshop this. But if you took a video of a murderer confessing to, somebody confessing to a murder, most people in a jury would believe it, because we're just not educated and don't know much about deepfakes. And the problem is, if you were somebody that had that intention and wanted to create a video that tricked people, you could. We're not the only company out there. You can just go online you can just go to GitHub and use one of these two repos I showed you earlier to create videos like that. In fact, one of the scariest things recently was one of these two repos on here was used to create a video of President Zelensky asking people in Ukraine, the military, to put their arms down and surrender, which was not true and created by a hacker. And that's scary. The thing is, this is going to happen, and this was caught, and we were luckily safe from this, but it's going to happen again. And if we can make this, there's two ways to beat this. One is that you completely ban it and prevent companies like Windsor from existing, but that typically has never worked well. Instead, we think the correct solution is education. Is if we can succeed and create as many videos as possible and get this in front of as many people's eyes as possible, it'll just become ubiquitous and it'll stop working. And we'll stop being pawns of a larger political agenda. Speaking of pawns, it's the last part, and I promise we're almost there. This is a great segue to talk about chess and why chess has anything to play with the company. So again, last year when we were sort of doing this, Andrew, who's my co-founder, began working on that first model. And you saw that video. It took us about 2 weeks after reading the paper to get that first video. And my job at the time was to try and figure out, like, hey, if we built this cool demo, would anybody care? Would anybody pay for this? And does anybody actually want to use deepfakes in whatever? And so my job was to start coding this little MVP. But at the time, I was really depressed because I was coming out of shutting down this company from 2 years, and the last thing I wanted to do was work. And so at the same time, everybody was getting out of their Queen's Gambit sort of phase, I suppose. And so everyone was playing a lot of chess. I started to play a lot of chess, and I was basically playing chess for 5 hours a day, learning to cope. And so Andrew could not find out that I was not working and had to be lazy. And so I started to cut a lot of corners. Whenever I needed to do some work for the company, I started to cut corners. And one of those important ones that actually was super critical for Windsor to succeed from a business side of things was this thing where I needed to start sending out deepfake videos to people and see if it worked, if they opened it more, if they clicked more, if they responded more. But I didn't have the time to create that MVP. I definitely didn't want to. So instead, what I did was did a little bit of Googling and figured out that the most common English name out there was David, at least in North America. So I went ahead and just recorded a genuine video of me saying, hey, David, this is Pranay, and this is a deepfake video. What do you think? And obviously it was a real video. I only said David. And I went ahead and just found lists of people on WhatsApp and LinkedIn and email and sent them all videos of me saying, hey, David, this is a deepfake. People were super, super impressed. I had so many Davids reach out and say they watched it multiple times and just could not figure out where the deepfake was, because obviously it wasn't a deepfake at all. But that was really a good signal at the time to see, we even had a 95% response rate on WhatsApp, which was incredible. People really thanked us for taking the time instead of working on this tech. And now I started to, as I worked on these slides, there was a lot more I was going to get into with talking about Windsor and the success rates and all the different use cases we can see on Windsor. But in the interests of time and also not being self-serving and promotional, this is a tech talk after all, this is all I'm going to leave you with. As far as business on Windsor, check out windsor.io. If you believe deepfakes and personalization plays a role and could help your business, the answer is it probably does, and we're probably the best people to work with to do just that. That's it. Yeah. Thanks for checking out my talk.